And now we're going to be talking to our political commentator. Justin, good morning to you.
Joseph, how are you, brother?
I am well. We were worried here that Russian fighters were scrambling our communications here. Is that the skies are clear in Canberra? Because I've heard that they have been taking some errands outside of their territory lately.
They certainly have. I'm on my way to Henty Field Day at the moment. I just want to give a shout out. Anyone that's in the south of New South Wales or northern Victoria, Henty Field Day, the Faith FM Strongman challenge is going to be set up there for the next 3 days, starting tomorrow. So I look forward to catching up with people there. Come over and say hello.
Oh, we need to send Lawson there so he can show everyone what a strongman actually is. Lawson, you should go there.
We're scared. Don't send Lawson. We're already shaking in our boots.
Yeah, buddy. Watch out.
So, Justin, tell us what's going on in Europe that's making the headlines.
Yeah, well, look, after just returning from Finland, and, you hear fighter jets fly around there all the time where the Arai school where we're working there, it's right near a base. It makes you a bit nervous. And we visited Estonia, a beautiful country, the city of Tallinn, just something everyone should see. Well, on Friday, the Russian Air Force buzzed to Estonia, flew into their airspace. And then again, over the weekend, they've gone over the Baltic Sea. That, of course, borders Finland and Sweden and Germany. All of these Baltic countries there. Russia's right there on their doorstep. And this is really, they had to scatter some NATO fighters to, counter the Russian fighters. So I'm not sure what Russia's up to, but with what they've done with Poland and drones, they're definitely poking at NATO. NATO, they just agreed, the British, to spend 5% of GDP while Donald visited with them. They're very nervous because I think NATO is pretty unprepared to deal with Russia. Mm-hmm. They have neglected their military. They've relied on the United States for so long. But the United States has other factors to consider, Taiwan being the main thing. Mm-hmm. And they're definitely refocusing back down to the Pacific and getting out of Europe. And I don't know, Russia's really trying to stir the pot there. We'll see what happens.
I wonder if they're trying to probe the reaction of what would happen. Because, we've seen something similar happening around Australia, for example, with the Chinese warships, doing some live fire drills and circumnavigating Australia. And the theory is that they're probably just scanning and mapping the underwater cables. But I was looking about that topic is, people are talking about, Russia violating the airspace of Estonia. But there's an incident that happened in 2015 with Turkey. Now it's Turkey, Justin. I don't know if you heard about it, but in 2015 there was a bomber fighter, an Su. I'll find out. I think it's an Su-24 bomber that violated the airspace of Turkey, and after a couple of minutes, when Turkish F-16 launched an air-to-air missile, and it basically destroyed the Russian fighter. It was a big mess for Russia because the pilots ejected. One of them was actually captured and then killed by Syrian rebels. The other one was rescued, but it was a very complex operation. Actually, got one Russian Marine lost his life in that process. But as an aftermath of that, guess what happened? Russia never again entered into Turkish airspace without announcing or asking for permission. So there's a lot of hawks in the NATO world saying we should have done the same. But at the same time, you think, isn't that going to escalate? Is this going to show up healthy boundaries, or is it going to escalate the conflict to the next level?
And there's a great fear that if Putin, his life is under threat, he's unwell, or he's personally attacked, they've tried to assassinate him numerous times, that he could launch something that couldn't be stopped. So, I was shocked at how Finland was just, they are ready for war all the time, and they're sort of like egging it on almost. I think why. Anyway, that's Europe, modern Europe.
Wow.
We're in a big time of turbulence here, where all the powers are shifting around, and everyone's finding where they now sit in a new world. And it's yet to be decided who's going to be on top there. But I'm backing America because of what Bible prophecy says.
So, yeah, speaking of America, let's go to the United States. You know, I don't think we spoke about Charlie Kirk already with
last
you?
week.
Last week? Yes, we did.
Last week. It's terrible, terrible stuff.
So what have been some of the repercussions? You know, what has happened since, particularly, I do not know, have you been following the funeral? Was there anything there that's noteworthy?
I followed a bit of it, yeah. It's very long. Look, the emotion that's coming to the conservative side of politics is the thing that everyone needs to take note of. Because they've tolerated George Soros and Antifa and all these different left-wing organizations, Act Blue. It turns out there seems to be a bit of a conspiracy from what's being shared online. On the day of the shooting, the man that was at the microphone asking questions had been very involved with Destiny and all these other extreme left-wing groups that have been calling for the killing of Charlie and other conservatives, like outright violence. Once Trump now, he's announced he's going to make Antifa and others, and they're declared a terrorist organization. That is the end of those organizations. The full weight of America's military intelligence, everything, traces down every cent that's donated, who gave it. And there's a lot of people on that left side of politics that are trembling in their boots, because this killing of Charlie has led to a real reaction that's going to have real world implications.
But so let's bring that a little bit to Bible prophecy. How do you think that these dots connect? So what are we seeing here, just like from big picture? What's happening here? And is that somehow possibly connected to what the Bible says is going to happen in the end times, particularly when it comes to an enforcement of a false worship upon Bible-believing people?
Okay, I'm going to put myself out here. This is Justin's view, not Faith FM's.
Okay.
Get ready.
This is going to be good. You ready, Lawson? Okay. I have said for ages, I've heard preachers say, there's going to be all these laws brought in because of climate change, and there's going to be all this globalism and all that. I've said forever, that's not where it's coming from. It is the right wing. It is Christianity that gets political, that's going to bring all the troubles on God's people right at the end, which seems counterintuitive because you think, well, that's us. We're Christians. We want Christian values. We don't want all this other crazy left-wing stuff going on. Right at the end in Daniel chapter 11, it's around verse 43 onwards, the king of the south, which is, we've said forever, is a secular, communist, socialist, anti-God. The king of the north, which is corrupted Christianity, comes against the king of the south and destroys him like a whirlwind very quickly. That's where I think we are. I think we're seeing the destruction of the forces of the left, and okay, I'm not a lefty. I'm right wing in my view of the world and everything else. But in fact, that's where that's where all our troubles will come from, because this is not the preaching of the gospel that's happening. This is electing senators and presidents and congressmen and politicians to enforce Christianity and Christian values. That's not a biblical worldview at all for me.
Absolutely. Wow, that's some very sobering thoughts there. Thanks for sharing, particularly that connection with Daniel 11. I think it's really fascinating. What about Jimmy Kimmel? Have you followed what happened to him?
Yeah, I did. And again, like I'm not a fan of Jimmy. Sorry, I'm putting that out there.
Hey, you have company here on the breakfast show.
So
Not
I
fans
think
of Jimmy
that's
Kimmel.
yay. But what really happened is the affiliate stations that take that show from ABC or whoever it is over there, they said we're not putting this on anymore. We don't want our local tire outlet, selling to the locals. They don't want to put ads on. We can't make money. We're losing money with this show. It's hurting us. So a lot of people are saying it was Trump's FEC guy that did that. But in fact, there's a lot of that going on. And the right wing has always not been cancel culture. They've been more like a bit more libertarian. That's changed. And I think the Bud Light thing changed that.
Yeah.
And it's Harley Davidson, John Deere, all of these conservative companies, traditionally conservative, went really left, and the right has reacted. And now the market, people are very sensitive that they're going to lose money. Jimmy Kimmel was losing the money. That was a real thing. But there's a lot of influence now. Cancel culture has come to the right wing, and that's going to keep on going.
What I think, because I had a look into this over the weekend. We talked about it on Friday, had a very interesting discussion about Jimmy Kimmel and his cancellation and why he's cancelled and whatnot. I had a look into it regarding the regulatory body in the United States, the FCC. And because the FCC, the head of the FCC came out, and I believe it was an interview or a podcast or something, and said, hey, the local network should put pressure on ABC to get Jimmy Kimmel cancelled. Basically, don't play his show because it's, it was offensive and whatever, and they did that, and it's like, oh, okay, so is there a little bit of a meddling of free speech here because it's coming from a regulatory body and not from a company necessarily? But I will say this, because you could say, oh, what about those comments? What about those comments? Simultaneously, ABC is in the middle of an acquisition right now that needs to be approved by the FCC. And one of their spokespeople, one of their people on their shows, Jimmy Kimmel, gets up and says something that they find offensive. And for their, this is what I really looked into. I'm like, it's a little bit of a money game. They're like, hey, the FCC might block this acquisition because they don't like Jimmy Kimmel. And for us, it's a money game. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't make that much money. And, the local networks are starting to bark up as well. And this is the thing. If Jimmy Kimmel was a popular program that makes fun of, Donald Trump or Charlie Kirk, like a South Park or something like that, then they would fight for it. But because Jimmy Kimmel's not, they cancelled him.
They want to cut him loose, mate. He's losing them money. And all of these late night guys that used to be comedians and decided to become political, they're all losing money because at least half the country doesn't like their jokes.
Yeah, that's right.
So, that's not how a comedian gets ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and back in the days,
cancel culture.
Yeah, I remember that back in the days, the genius of these politicians, these comedians, is that you never actually knew what side of the political spectrum they were. So it kind of, if you were on the left wing, you would laugh at their jokes and you think that they're probably they're pulling the leg of the right. And then when they crack the joke, but the right wingers will look at the same joke and think that they're probably cracking on the left. I think that whole sort of art of being a kind of a joker and appealing to everyone disappeared, and they became very, very political. In their game.
That's right, and you can thank the likes of Jimmy Kimmel for that. Jimmy Kimmel was the guy.
Yeah.
This is what I've stated over and over again.
But
he jumped the shark.
There's a movement where the conservative, we're not going to call them oligarchs, but the wealthy conservatives are taking over the media as well. And there's a lot of moves going on that the media has always acted since the war, really, as a counterweight to any political force that's got power at the time, and it holds them accountable. They kind of lost their marbles here 10, 20 years ago, and it's got worse and worse where they're a part of the political process and not separate from it. That's not a good thing.
Yeah,
we need to be held accountable, and now you watch your media that you agrees with your politics.
Yeah,
and it's not necessarily challenging what you would think.
Yeah,
so that's not healthy. That's
Absolutely.
not healthy.
Absolutely. And Justin, to finalize, we have about a minute and a half left, but you mentioned that something to me that something was happening in the gold space. How's the price of gold, and why should we be looking into that?
It's gone nuts again, but the governments are buying gold at such a rate now, Russia and China leading it. Currencies, as we've known them again, really since the early 70s when they cut it off from the gold, value of gold was disconnected from the value of the dollar. It seems as if gold is going to become the new dollar. And we're going back to the old times. And I'm not giving any financial advice because I'm not qualified to do so, but I'm telling you guys, it's a canary in the gold mine. Or should I say coal mine? The canary would tell you when there's something about to happen. He'd fall off his perch because it's bad gas. Something's happening with the world economy that it's getting a shift away from dollars to gold and silver and precious metals and other commodities. This is something that's just telling us there's something big shifting going on.
That's good to know. Let's definitely keep up an eye on that space. Justin, thank you so much